Okay. Uh, yeah, this is my project. This is Breaking Blue by Timothy Again. And this project is made by me, TJ Shanahan. So today I'll be discussing Breaking Blue by Timothy Again. This is a crime book. It delves into some old murder cases. It's kind of about like a relentless pursuit of justice by a determined sheriff. And so, our hook is that he had always thought the badge would protect him. This line kind of sets the tone for the entire book. It highlights the betrayal and corruption within the very institution which is meant to uphold the law, being the police force. The title, Breaking Blue, it refers to breaking the blue wall of silence or the unwritten code among police officers to protect their own police officers or like themselves, their own people, even when such crimes are committed. And so, a summary of the case. So in 1935, it was the Great Depression. Obviously, the setting is Spokane, Washington, which is it's like a city that was full of corruption during the Great Depression. Lots of officers were engaged in criminal activity and crimes, mostly extortion and theft. However, one night, one of the officers, Officer George Conniff, was murdered while investigating burglary at a local ice cream store, and the case has went unsolved for over 50 years. And so that's partially where the book takes place, and the other part of the book is placed in the 1980s, where an officer named Tony Bamonte, who was a Vietnam veteran, he was a newly appointed sheriff for Spokane, and he kind of stumbled upon the case while researching for his thesis, his master's. And kind of like he was like surprised by how like there was like almost nothing written in the files, so he began to dig deep and kind of uncovered this like whole web of corruption within the department. Like I said, our setting is between the 1930s and 1980s, held between the point of view of George Conniff in like a third person, and then in the point of view of Bamonte. This setting, it's held in a kind of widespread corruption in Spokane, talking about their police force. Kind of flips between the two timelines, and yeah. And so our main characters, we have Tony Bamonte. He's the character that like when it's talking in the 1980s is. He's a sheriff who doesn't like he wants to unfold the truth and wants to know the whole truth. And then another character, George Conniff. He was the officer that was murdered in 1935. William Hellman. He was a officer who was like one of the main primary suspects throughout the case. And then there was Clyde Ralston, who was believed to be an accomplice and was mostly known for his violent tendencies. And then there's a lot of other people named in the book, but there's just so many to keep track of. So it's mostly just a bunch of ex-cops and officials who like only said something after the case was finally discovered. So the investigation, Bamonte was he faced a lot of obstacles, faced lots of resistance from former officers when it came to like obstruction of evidence or missing or destroyed evidence. The community didn't want to face the past through these forgotten files. Even though he faced these challenges, he was really determined to uncover everything, since it obviously was the death of an officer, and like it was a case that was undiscovered and like was discovered but like unresolved for over 50 years. So after the reopening of the case, it just brought a lot of attention and brought like a lot of like attention to the corruption that was in the apartment a couple long years ago over those 50 years. So the structure and tone, the book switches between the past and present, like I said, between the 1930s and the 1980s. It builds lots of suspense and uncovers a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, kind of like building up lots of tension throughout the piece. The tone, it's really tense and honest, which is good. Very good for a crime book, and made it really interesting and really exciting to read. Personal connection, this reminded me a lot of true crime books and documentaries, especially with cases that involve corruption. I really admire Monty's persistence to find the truth. I kind of related a little bit to it in the sense of justice and the willingness to like do the right stuff. I think that's really cool, and yeah, I think it's really, really awesome that that was able to happen. So the academic response, yeah, the book was kind of challenging, like I said, flipping through a lot of historical details and real names to keep track throughout the course of the novel. His style is journalistic but emotionally driven. He does a great job with storytelling, like I said. There's a lot of really cool parts in the story, especially since it goes through a lot of point of views. Um, and especially because, like, like it doesn't say just the perspective of George Conniff, the guy who was murdered, or Tony Vamazzi, the guy investing case. It also shows the perspective, like, the ex-cops and ex-officials, who didn't talk about the case. So you get more than one point of view. I think that's really interesting. Yeah, this is a really good book. If you enjoy true crime, history, or any, like, type of corruption in, like, history or, like, obstruction of justice, I really recommend the book. It's a really good book. It's a little long. It's like 400 pages, but yeah, it's definitely a really good book. I like the book because it was kind of eye-opening and it made me, like, think about, like, institutions and how much power they hold. We don't necessarily think about it, but, like, it's just kind of crazy to me that so many institutions can hold so much power, and it's kind of crazy what happens when one person steps out and is able to reveal the whole truth. And that is it.